In this video, we're going to create a generic particle burst effect inside of Unreal. This is a very common effect in video games to tell the player that something important happened. You would commonly use this when the player picks something up, like a collectible or a power-up, or when something took damage or is destroyed. It's used a lot. We're going to use two approaches here. The first one is going to be very quick and very simple, and then I'm going to show you the more customizable way. Either way, we want generic particles that we can put in very quickly for prototyping that we can replace later on with more detailed effects when we're ready. So let's take a look at the simple and quick way first. Okay, so let's say that you have a game. So I'm going to hit play here, and we come into our scene and we see these little collectibles. We want to pick them up, and we want to see an effect whenever we pick it up. Right now there's nothing. You may hear some sound effects, but we want a little burst just to really let the player know something happened, you picked this up. We're going to use Unreal's Niagara system. It's newer than their old Cascade system, and it should be more future-proof, so we're going to set it up that way. So the quick way to do this is we can right-click, go to Effects, and click Niagara System. We're going to choose New System from Selected Emitters. Hit Next. If you scroll down, this omnidirectional burst, this will shoot particles out in all directions. We're going to hit the plus button. So we're going to use that emitter as part of our system. We'll hit finish, give it a name. We'll say NS for Niagara System _ collectible pickup burst. You may want to save your asset, open it up, and you're going to see a window that looks something like this. You can move around this if you use the right mouse button and left mouse button, or you can hit F to kind of frame it a little bit better. One way or another, you can just use the left and right mouse button to get to where you want. One quick thing I'll show you how to do is if you click on the initialized particle over here on the right, you can change the color. You probably want to do this in most cases. So since my collectible is green, I can change that color to green. And now we have a green omnidirectional burst. So I'm going to save it, come back into our scene. And now that we have our Niagara system, we need to trigger it inside of blueprints, and we need it to actually happen during the gameplay. So in your game, you need to figure out where this is. I already have my blueprint collectible set up, where when we collect it, we will do some things right here. So right before I destroy my collectible, meaning that I collect it, I'm going to play the particle effect. So inside of blueprints, we're going to drag off and create a new node called spawn system at location right here. And this will spawn a Niagara system at the given location. So we're going to choose the Niagara system that we made. If we use NS _, it'll pop up very quickly, or we can type it in NS _. Select the one that we just made. And now we need to give it a location to spawn. I'm going to drag off of my location node. We don't want it to spawn at world 000. So we're going to drag off and say get actor location. So this is the location of the actor that this blueprint is assigned to. So we'll compile, save. So once we've set our system template and our get actor location, we should be good. Let's test this out. Whenever we pick up the collectible, it will spawn the Niagara system at this actor's location, just like that. So that's the quick and easy way to do it. The next way that I want to show you is more customizable and I would say more proper setup, and should allow you to create a lot of different kinds of emitters from a base template much more quickly for different kinds of generic particle bursts. So we'll go through that next. Now let's create our own custom Niagara emitter that we can use in other kinds of systems and customize it even more. So to do this, I'm going to right click and hover over FX. Now the difference between a system and an emitter is that a system can contain multiple different kinds of emitters. You could imagine a looping smoke effect combined with a burst effect. Those would be two separate emitters inside of a single system. So an emitter allows us to create a custom type of burst effect that we can reuse in different kinds of systems. So it's just a way for us to customize that a little bit better. So I'm going to choose Niagara emitter. Now we're going to base this off of the omnidirectional burst. So I'm going to choose new emitter, hit next, and it will be based off of this omnidirectional burst. So we're going to use this as a starting point, but we're going to customize it to our own liking so that we can reuse it in other systems. So select omnidirectional burst, hit finish. We'll call this NE for Niagara emitter, and we'll call this generic burst. I'm going to save the asset along with other assets that I have messed around with. Let's open it up. Note the name up here of our emitter. This is the emitter that we're going to define that we can add into other systems. So I'm going to click down here just to stop the little timeline. Now I'm going to change a lot of things here pretty quickly, but just to show you the main ones that you may want to change for a generic burst. And then obviously there are lots and lots of other things you can do here. The first thing that I like to change is the color. Now for a generic emitter, you might want to keep this white. I like to make mine blue just so it has some kind of nice effect. So I'm going to click on Initialize Particle, change that color to blue. We'll look at some of these other settings in a little bit. Another thing, when I click down here and I press space, let's get a little closer to that. Okay, let's hit the space bar and we can preview it. Right, I don't like that the particles drop. I want it to be a little bit more stylized and burst outwards at a higher speed. So I'm going to disable the gravity force. Click down here. See how it kind of bursts outwards without dropping? I like that effect better. Another thing, now that I disabled that, I want the particles to shoot out at a faster speed. So I'm going to click on Add Velocity, and I'm going to change these values to something that I like more. I think maybe I'm going to turn down the lowest velocity so that the slowest possible particle speed is even slower. And I'm going to turn up the maximum to have just a wider variance. So 1000, I think would be good. I like that. But now I think that the particles exist for a little bit too long. Right? I just want them to disappear more quickly. So I'm going to click on Initialize Particle. I'm going to look up at the very top. Our lifetime minimum is 1 second. I want that to be way lower. So we'll say half a second and max maybe 1 second. Okay, we can preview that. I think I like that more. It's pretty fast. I think that I also want more variation in the size of the particles. So we're going to go to Uniform Sprite Size, still on Initialize Particle. We'll say 1 and 10. So we're just turning down the minimum and turning up the maximum. You know, it's not a huge difference, but it's enough that I think it'll have a little bit more variation. And I think that's fine for now. There's a lot of other stuff that you can mess around with here, so feel free. But I end up tweaking those settings in almost all cases, and you can tweak them further. But this is going to be my starting point for my generic particle burst emitter. So now I have my game, I have my emitter, and let's say that I decide that I want to add a particle burst for these crates that I can destroy. You see how there's not a lot of impact when I shoot them. I just want a generic burst, and then later on, an effects artist can actually do a nice crate explosion effect, but I want it to look nice for prototyping and just to get, you know, the feel of it where I want. Now, it's really important before you continue that you make sure that you have saved your emitter. So if you have any ongoing changes, you want to make sure that those are saved out because we are about to create new systems based off this emitter, and we want to base it off of this point with all of our changes. So make sure you have that saved. I'm going to minimize that. And to create a new Niagara system, we just select our emitter. This is our generic burst that we just created. Right click and choose Create Niagara System up at the very top. And it will create a new system based off of this emitter. So we want to rename this NS for Niagara System _ Crate Explode Burst. All right. And so if we open this up and we double check, we have all the changes that we made off of our emitter. And you see that it's actually using our NE _ generic burst. This is our emitter, and it has all the changes that we did earlier. So this is perfect. We hit save. Maybe we actually make one quick change. Our crate explosion, maybe we want that to be orange, just to show you how quick this is. Change that to orange. Change the color on Initialize Particle to orange. Hit save again. And then we have our burst, which we can then use. So let's go in here and hook it up. So I'm going to go to my crate, edit BP. Now for me, this is where I want to trigger my burst effect. For you, it might be somewhere different, but I have already done some work here. And we're going to spawn some loot from the crate. We're going to play a sound effect and destroy the actor. I'm going to play my burst here. So wherever you need to play yours, you just drag off. Again, this is called Spawn System at Location. This is our Niagara system. Choose the new system that we created. So for me, it's Crate Explode Burst NS _ Location is going to be the crate. So the actor's location. This is my crate blueprint. Get actor location. All right, compile, save. And you can see how quick that was. And we're basing ours off of a custom emitter instead of our default omnidirectional template. So we can actually customize it more and then create generic particle bursts off of that customized emitter. So let's test it out, hit play, come in here. You see it's our new one that we created. Now here's the cool thing about all of this is that let's say I had multiple different kinds of generic particle bursts all over my level, and I wanted to just change them all, the base, not the individual crate. So let's right click, choose create Niagara system off of my emitter that I had selected. And we'll call this one ns underscore big collectible. This is kind of a throwaway, so it doesn't really matter, but we'll go into here. We'll compile save, and we're going to change this color to something else, like yellow or something, doesn't really matter. All right, so this one's yellow, our crate is orange, and our generic emitter is blue. So you can see that my crate is based off my any underscore generic burst. This is my emitter. My collectible is also based off of this one emitter, meaning that if we make changes to this emitter, it will automatically get updated into anything that is using that emitter. So our different generic systems that we're using. So this is the big advantage, right? If we decide that we want to add the gravity force back inside of our emitter, so I have my emitter selected and I select gravity force, hit save. If I click back, you can see that this is affecting all of my other places that I'm using this emitter in. So my crate explode burst now is using the gravity force, and my big collectible is now using the gravity force. So we can make sweeping changes across all of our generic bursts because it's all happening inside, this one generic burst emitter. So let's say that I turn that back off because I don't want to do that. Oh, we actually need to save this out. Hold on. Okay, so now that I saved my generic burst, it is actually going to revert. Cool. Save all of them. But hopefully this makes sense. Setting it up this way and creating different systems off of an emitter means that I can change the emitter in one place, and that'll affect all the different systems if I want to change it later. Either way, the process was select the emitter, right click, create new Niagara system, and then change the color, and then you can very quickly create a new generic burst. So that's it. Hopefully this helps you out when you're prototyping and gives you a very quick and easy way to add some effects to your games.